And for years and years, I had apparently been writing smooth jazz music. So
without knowing it?
Without knowing, literally without knowing it.
Hello and welcome to Undercurrent Stories. I'm Bob Wells. The music you can hear in the background is played by my guest on today's show, James Colah. James is a music producer, composer, arranger and keyboard player with a career spanning 4 decades. With his current single Yes receiving rave reviews, his smooth jazz and soul music is on the playlists of hundreds of international radio stations, including the BBC and Jazz FM. He is known as the UK's #1 indie smooth jazz artist. James tells us about his early years playing and touring with bands such as The Adventures supporting Tears for Fears. We talk about the genre of smooth jazz, for which he is famous for, and we hear how he has worked with and produced over 1,000 artists in many different musical styles. We finish up talking about how James uses his experience and musical talent to create compositions from just the humming of a basic melody. If you have ever felt like you have a song inside you, but you don't quite know how to get it out and develop the idea into a song and record it, then this episode is definitely for you. Hello James and welcome to the show.
Hey, hi Bob. Wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me on your awesome podcast show. It's very kind of you.
Oh, well, that's very nice of you to say so, and thank you so much for coming on. But before we talk about your single and your latest projects, can you give us a little background, please, about yourself and how you became interested in music?
Sure. Well, I started playing the piano at 4 years old. My father taught me the piano. And in fact, I'm one of identical triplets. And I had a band with my 2 identical triplet brothers. We started that band when we were actually 12 years old. We were signed to Sony Records when we were 22 years old. Yeah. Actually, when we were 16 years old, we toured Europe. We were sort of a jazz rock fusion band at the time.
Did you all play instruments?
My brother Mark is a bass guitarist and a lead vocalist. And my brother Peter is a guitarist. Yeah. Yeah. So, we used to play live a lot, of course, and we'd always hire different drummers.
Okay. Yeah. And do you sing yourself as well?
I do sing, but you know something? I know this might sound really funny. I would never class myself as a singer, although I can sing. And I'm singing on quite a few of my records, but I would not call myself a singer.
No, but you can keep in tune and you can get by.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I did notice, actually, doing a bit of background, that you were in a progressive rock band called Pendragon.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
Yeah, I do sort of remember them in the 70s.
Yes, I mean quite a cult band, huge band now actually.
Yeah. Now, one question I'd like to ask, and I have asked this to other guests, and I know you've got your own studio, so it may not have affected you so much, but how's the lockdown affected you? It's
obviously killed me. Yes, nobody's allowed in the studio, so I haven't been able to work. But of course, it gave me a lot of time to work on my new single and work on, I'm working on actually my next smooth jazz release. So it's worked out quite well, in fact.
Smooth jazz, for listeners who perhaps have heard the term but don't know an awful lot about it, what exactly is smooth jazz?
Well, I think smooth jazz is very melodic jazz music, instrumental jazz music with very strong melodies. Yeah. And in fact, the backing tracks are very soulful as well. So it's sort of easy listening music, but I hate that term, easy listening. But it's just very melodic jazz. So there's no heavy syncopations in it or anything. It's just very, very melodic.
Has that always been one of your favourite styles of music to listen to and play?
Actually, not at all. Not at all. Oh. Yeah, it's quite a strange story if you'd like to know. I released my very first smooth jazz release in 2009, and just prior to that, probably about 2008, I was playing some music and my brother was around, and I was working on a track of my own, and he said, that style of music you're writing, do you know it's actually smooth jazz? And I said, smooth jazz? I've never even heard of the genre. And he said, yeah, it's smooth jazz. And for years and years, I had apparently been writing smooth jazz music. So
without knowing it?
Literally without knowing it. Because, I was really into Chick Corea, the Mahavishnu Orchestra, Weather Report, so heavily into sort of fusion music and soul music as well, but not this smooth jazz music. But I thought, wow, if he says it is smooth jazz music, I'll give it a go and try and release my first record. And, as they say, the rest is history.
Yeah, and on the music that you've been releasing, I gather that it's quite famous. You're quite famous in America.
Oh yes. It's smooth jazz is big in America. It's big in Japan as well. Big in Germany. Yes. Oh yes.
It's interesting these days how music, it's very genre orientated, isn't it?
It is.
And whereas in the 60s and 70s and perhaps early 80s, there was pop music, there was country music, rock music, etc.
Yes.
I guess it would have been put within the whole pop music thing at that time, but now it's got its own genre. And you're the UK's known as the UK's number one indie smooth jazz artist.
Well, you know what? I always say that I'm really happy being a big fish in a small pond because, smooth jazz is a very, very small genre, as well as obviously jazz itself is really a small genre. But I'm happy about that. And for good or bad, actually, there are not many smooth jazz artists in the UK.
Yeah.
They're mainly in the States. And in fact, even the artists that were in the UK have moved to the States.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you, your careers spanned 3 or 4 decades.
Yes.
So you were with your brothers initially,
That's
and then
right.
you went on to tour with Tears for Fears.
I was supporting Tears for Fears in a group called The Adventures. The Adventures was signed to Chrysalis Records. They had a few hit singles, Drowning in a Sea of Loves, Send My Heart, Broken Land. So I was the keyboard player in that band, opening up for Tears for Fears on the Songs from the Big Chair tour back in 1985.
Wow.
So it was like the biggest tour of that year. It was an incredible experience at the time. I was really young at the time, an incredible experience.
Yeah, I bet it was. And you must have, you went right around the world, did you?
So I was hired as a session musician. So I was just hired for America and Canada.
Yeah, yeah.
But to give you some idea of the venues we played, we did 5 nights at the Radio City Music Hall in New York.
Wow.
We played at the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville. We played at Red Rocks in Denver, Colorado. Played in obviously big amphitheaters. It was really real fun. That
must have been a great experience to sort of kick your career off.
Absolutely, yes. And funny enough, I was a session musician at the time, obviously, and you just put an advert saying that you've just toured supporting Tears for Fears, and the work was just flooding in, literally just because of that.
Are you touring at all at the moment? Have you got any gigs lined up?
No, actually, I'm not gigging at the moment. I'm just focused on, my music production for clients. So no, I'm not actually gigging.
And in terms of your composing, where do you get your ideas from?
Actually, a lot of people ask that question, where I get my ideas, what influences me. But the honest truth is, I'm actually not influenced when I write music. I just get to the piano, get to the keyboard, and I start developing ideas. Maybe put down a chord progression, then a bass line, then a drum, then drums, and it's like a snowball effect. So I just builds up. So that's the sort of way it works.
Do you sort of wake up sometimes with an idea?
I don't, not at all, actually, not at all. I've been doing this for a living since 1989, writing music for singers and songwriters. So you just get in that frame of mind that you've just got to write something, and it just happens to come. It just comes.
And do you ever get artists who've got a rough idea of what they want? They can hum a little bit and then you can do the rest. Does it work like that at all?
Yes, sorry, that's the way it works. Literally somebody hums a melody to me. They don't even need a lyric. And I can hear that vocal melody and then create the music. I can even create music and then they take the backing track away and create their vocal melody to the music. And in fact, there's a song called "Something Beautiful" by Helena Grieber that got to number 1 on one of the CD Baby charts. And I wrote that music for her. and she put the vocal melody on afterwards.
Oh, wow. So tell us a little bit about your studio. How long have you had it, James?
Okay, so I started my studio in 1989, and I'm in fact on my 6th studio now. I've had 5 commercial studios, but now I think because of the economy, I decided to have my studio in my home. So my studio is at my home right now.
In terms of artists that you produce, obviously there's a list, and we'll put them on the show notes later so that people can see who you produce, but there's some fairly big names there. Have you got much work at the moment in terms of new artists coming along?
Well, I have to be honest, because of the lockdown, there's no work, obviously, because I'm not allowed to have anybody in the studio. But of course, I'm hoping that's going to change soon.
I'm sure it will. I mean, people are sort of getting their hair cut again, aren't they? And
yes.
Nails done. Not that I'm getting my nails done, but and all that. So, are you in the way your studio works?
Yes.
Do you welcome any types of musicians, or have they got to be people who've perhaps been in the charts before? Or?
No, absolutely not. It doesn't matter as long as you have an idea for a song. I can make something great happen. That's my sort of motto. So, no, because the interesting thing is, so many people sing melodies to themselves and think, oh, if only I could create a record, have a finished product. So, my clients are so varied. One of my best clients was a solicitor, a surgeon, a bus driver, you name it. Anybody can come to me. And in fact, Helena Grieber she works in the medical profession.
Oh, right.
Yes. So, of course, I produce professional artists as well. But, anybody can come to me, and, please do come to me,
Any listeners out there who fancy having themselves recorded, we'll put all that on the show notes, if that's okay, James, and they can make contact with you. So if they wanted to do, say, 1 or 2 songs... Yeah. Would that be like a day's studio time? How long would it take?
Well, normally, if somebody just sings a vocal melody to me, within just 5 to 8 hours, I should have composed, performed, produced the complete backing track just within 5 to 8 hours.
Wow.
Which is incredibly quick. And as I say, that's because I've been doing it for 31 years now.
Yes. So that's everything. That's all the drums, the bass,
all the drum, the whole backing track. Yeah. Now, of course, they then would have to hire to book another day to do the vocals. But obviously, if they know exactly what they're doing, and they've done all their rehearsing, because studios are not for rehearsing; studios are just for recording. But,
I was going to say that. So if they've got an idea, I assume they come to you with the idea in their head, or can they send that to you? Because would they want to be with you while you're actually finishing it off, or is that something you do on your own?
This is the way it happens. I actually ask them to send me just the vocal melody.
Yeah.
And then I actually compose the music before they actually arrive. So I must say that I actually give my clients at least 5 hours free production time. And that production is in me before they even come to the studio. I have composed their melody for them.
Yeah.
So
then they come along and they basically sing it.
Yes. So what they do is I ask them to send me a reference track. So reference track is a style of music that they think that production would really quite suit their vocal melody. So it will be from obviously maybe a commercial famous artist. And I'm very good at absorbing the production vibe of that song. I'm not stealing anything. I'm just absorbing the vibe. So they might want an Adele type of vibe, or any major artist, and I'm just good at absorbing that vibe. So that's the way it works.
Okay, and then they will come on for another day, and then it will be done.
Another day to do the vocals, and then on that same day, hopefully, I was going to say, if they know what they're doing, they should be able to record the vocals in, say, 2 or 3 hours, and then the last 2 processes are mixing and mastering, and believe it or not, I can normally mix and master a whole song in 1 hour.
Wow.
Now, people say that's incredible, but yet again, it's because I've been doing this for a long time. And also, there's these producers that spend a day tweaking a hi-hat sound or a snare drum sound. No. The only thing that makes a hit record, as far as I'm concerned, is an incredible vocal melody, sung with passion.
Yeah.
Because that's what we listen to, isn't it?
Well, it is. And when you think in the sort of early days where, groups would just go into a studio and play live.
Yes.
Probably take a few takes.
Yes.
They still capture that magic spirit.
That's it. It's all about the vibe, Bob. It's all about the vibe.
Yeah. So what do you think of today? What are your thoughts on today's contemporary music scene?
Well, I don't really listen to a lot of it, to be honest, because the problem is it is sounding very, very samey. People are using the same technology. If a number one record has a certain sound about it, some special effect, then everyone's repeating that effect. Might be that vocal stutter effect, or actually that's a bit passé now, or like those vocals that are sampled vocals and they're very high pitched and they sound very melodic. So I don't know. Everybody's just jumping in on the same sort of bandwagon. They think they've got to create a track that sounds like the latest thing, but of course that's so wrong. Because there's more chance of winning the lottery than being successful doing that. Because really, not many people want to hear the same thing over and over again.
But I think there's a lot of artists such as yourself who are still making some fantastic music, but they're not necessarily getting the commercial exposure that is happening, say, through Spotify or iTunes or whatever. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I totally agree with that. Because you see, I don't make music to make money. I make music only for me, to be honest. It's only for me. If I don't like it, it doesn't matter what anybody else says about my music. I won't release it. And that's why I don't get any feedback on my music either. Well, maybe one or two people, I do actually send it to a couple of DJs that I really trust. But apart from that, nobody hears it because I have to be happy with it at the end of the day.
Yeah. I heard you were on the Gary Williams show fairly recently.
Oh, yes. Gary Williams is such an amazing guy. And of course, he did a podcast with you. Absolutely amazing guy.
Yeah, he is, isn't he? Plays some great music, some of the old school stuff and some of the more contemporary stuff like yourself.
That's correct. Beautiful stuff.
On the subject of the genre of music, of smooth jazz, I noticed that a lot of the artists that you've produced, it's not necessarily smooth jazz. So I guess when artists are looking to record from you, you can take a different approach, diverse types of music. Is that right?
Well, absolutely. In fact, if I could just plug my website, which is jamescolahproductions.com. And by the way, Colah is spelled Colah. I've got 32 tracks on there of such diverse genres of music. And all the music was composed and performed and produced by me. And there's an indie rock track, there's funk music there's soul music, country music. I love writing in different genres of music.
Yeah, well, I've listened to quite a lot of your songs over the last few days, James. And there's some really nice bits of guitar. I particularly liked a song called Touched by the Light.
Oh, yes.
That's a really nice song.
Oh, thank you.
And Costa Rican Girl with some nice guitar.
Thank you.
Quite a lot of Latin feel in some of these songs, I have to say.
Yes, and there's another one called, did you listen to Cha Cha Chihuahua?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Yeah. That's nice as well.
Thank you.
You've had quite a lot of success with Key Jam, 7 number ones.
Oh yes, that's right. Key Jam was a soul project that I've been involved with literally for the last 25 years. The guy is called, who hires me is called D Majek, and funny enough, Majek backwards is Key Jam.
Yeah,
and I've written all the music for him, and he's actually the executive producer. And it has been so successful. We've had, as I say, 7 number ones in the UK soul charts. There's an album out. It's been great.
You mentioned earlier that you're currently working on some new songs, James. Can you tell us a little bit more about them?
Sure. Well, I actually only released my latest single called Yes 3 weeks ago, but I'm working on my follow-up to that. which is, yes, if you listen to Yes, it's a very powerful up-tempo track. But this next track is going to be very, very mellow, very slow, very atmospheric. And I think that's as much as I'm going to tell you about it at the moment. And it is smooth jazz. It is smooth jazz.
Looking forward to hearing that. I've been listening to the songs over the last few days since Gary played one of your songs. I discovered you a bit more. And like I said, we'll put everything on the show notes so that people can find out more.
Oh, thank you.
Well, James, it's been a great conversation. How can people find out more about your work?
Okay, well, if you go to my website, jamescolahproductions.com, and as I say, there's 32 tracks on there. There's my contact page. If you are interested in me helping you produce your music, I'd be delighted to do that. And, don't be shy. Whoever you are, if you've got an idea for a melody, I'll make something great happen.
Well, certainly the end result's a proof of the pudding. That's all I can say. So,
thank you, Bob.
James, thanks very much for coming on the show. Thank you.
Oh, it's a real pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Bob.
My thanks go to today's guest, James Colah, record producer and smooth jazz artist. I found this a fascinating conversation, and over the last few weeks, I've really been enjoying James's music. His new single, Yes, is perfect for chilling out on a hot summer's evening. If you fancy recording a song with James, just get in touch with him. You don't have to be an experienced artist, as he can help you right through. He has co-written, arranged, performed, produced and recorded songs for well over 1,000 artists. Contact details for James, as well as a link to his music, can be found on the show notes. You have been listening to Undercurrent Stories. I hope that you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe or follow the show for future episodes, and if you like what you hear, please share the show link to your friends and family. And if you have 60 seconds, I will be most grateful if you would please rate and review. Please check out our webpage and social media links, details of which can be found on the show notes. Until next time, this is Bob Wells wishing you all the very best.